Hi.
How are you guys? Welcome to Redeemer Youth. If you guys are watching online, this is our pre-show. My name is Brian.
My name is Baco.
We are excited for tonight. If this is your first week being with us, we last week began a new conversation, a new series that we're calling Unknown. A lot of fun. We're looking at a passage of the Bible called the Armor of God. You might be familiar with that if you went to Sunday school or church, but if you've never heard of that, it's a part of the Bible in Ephesians chapter 6, so the armor of God. And, you know, it's like going into battle, and here's the armor. I don't know. It should be really fun. And we're going to dive into it a little bit more today. Last week, though, we kicked off our series, Unknown, talking about how people are not your enemy. Baco, for you, listening to that message, like, what stood out to you? What was new or a different thought, or like what was going through your head from that message, or since you've been thinking about it, you know, since we talked about it last week?
Right. The topic of enemies. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, in AWOL and everything. And one person just kept on coming to my mind over and over. I've been holding a grudge against that person for a while, and yeah, that person just kept on coming back to my mind, and it's just really I should just forgive what they did and just move on. To be honest, yeah.
Well, it's crazy because like every one of we all have that, like that person. The way we talked about it last week was like that person that even just the thought of them kind of makes your gut kind of go ugh. Like it brings up that anger, that frustration, right?
Yeah.
And God wants to heal that and like help us forgive that, and so that we don't have to carry that around with us anymore, right? So for me, last week's was really helpful because man, you said one person. Like, my list is long, so yeah, I mean, even just the weight of practicing that, like, no, I forgive them, I let them go, like they are loved by God, like just practicing that.
Yeah.
It's like a weight off your shoulders. So I'm super excited to jump into tonight, talking more about the armor of God. We actually get into the first pieces of the armor of God. So tonight should be a really, really good one. I'm super pumped. Yeah, excited for where we're going with this series. But Baco, we do have a headline that we'll be sharing later on today. Some exciting news. What is our exciting news?
Well, starting next week, we are extending AWOL till 8:30, so you get more small group time, pretty much. More
group time together. So we go till 8 o'clock tonight.
Yep.
Next week we go till 8:30. Yeah, the whole idea. I mean, we've heard your cry. We need more time to connect. We need more time to just be together, to talk, to have conversation, to be able to get a little deep with each other, or just have some fun together. And so we've heard your plea. We are going to extend Redeemer Youth Nights on Sundays for an extra half an hour. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should.
Should be really good. I'm excited for our growth group leaders and all of our students, and for that matter. And for you, you can connect with your group, over Zoom for an even longer extended period of time. And maybe you can have some fun games with them too. Keep changing the background on them. That's like my favorite Zoom feature in the world. I've got some good ones. So anyways, I want to hear stories of some ridiculous backgrounds in Zoom. All right, so that's my expectation for all of you now. All right, but Baco, let's not waste too much time here. Oh my, Jared, hello. Wait, Jared, don't go. You're going to come and you're going to play a new game with us, okay?
Okay.
So you are going to help us out. Baco, explain the game, and Jared, you're going to be kind of our guinea pig on this game for us.
So the game is called Moose, Meese, Moosin', and it's basically what is the plural of this item or animal.
Okay.
So
it's easy. What's the plural?
Okay.
So let's start off with an easy one. For example, moose. Is it moose, meese, or moosin'?
Is it a moose? It's just moose. Moose.
Yeah,
let's see. Just moose.
Yeah, the plural of moose is moose, right?
Yeah.
So multiple moose are not mooses.
Or meeses.
They're meesin' nooses.
Moose miss.
No, they're moose.
Moose eye.
I see a whole flock of moose.
I see a flock of Liam Neeson.
Oh my. Okay. So let's do our next round.
Okay. All right.
The next word is beef. We have beef, beavis, and beefs.
You're asking a guy that works in meat department. It's beef.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Let's see. It's actually beeves.
It's beeves.
Really?
Beeves.
Really?
Yes.
I would like some beef. Are you sure you wouldn't prefer some beeves?
Interesting. That actually that's surprising.
I'm surprised it's not cattle.
Yeah.
It's
well,
not
cattle just be cows.
cows. No,
But I feel like if it was
not
like, I'd
cows.
like some cattles, like I feel like that would not go over. Like,
No, it's more like-
McDonald's, like, I'd like a cheeseburger. You know what? Make that a whole flock of cattle. Like, that's, I feel like that'd be a weird conversation.
That's not how it works.
All right,
right.
let's try the next one.
Lasagna. We have lasagnas,
Lasagnes.
lasagnas.
Lasagnas, or lasagnes.
Zogno. Let's try lasagnas.
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 Lasagna.
It is lasagna. Yeah, how do you say that? Lasagne? Lasagne. Okay.
Lasagne.
If you could type in the phonetic plural of lasagna,
Lasagne.
lasagne?
Lasagne.
Lazognags.
Lazogana.
We have no idea. We have no clue how to pronounce this. But okay, Jared, you're what, 1 for 3 so far. I think you gotta bump that odds. Let's make it 50%.
Well, I mean, technically, it's a 50. They have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right. So
Right.
statistically,
All right. Next word. Focus. Is it focus?
focuses.
Focusy or foci?
Focuses. Or well, if it's plural, I'm guessing. Well, who uses focus in a plural text?
I don't even understand. Like, how would you?
It's mainly math, pretty much. That's
There's focuses in math.
yeah.
Since when?
The group of us had some very deep focuses.
But then that's using past tense, and our group focused.
Okay, but you said focuses.
Is that
Because
your
I don't.
answer?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, what's the actual
The
answer?
actual answer is foci.
Foci, because that's,
Because that's such a commonly used word.
just the 3 of us were not foci.
We are not.
I don't even know how to use
Brain
it.
no function good. Brain no English.
Okay. We got time for one more. Okay, you need to come back, totally redeem yourself. If you are knowing these online and this might be ridiculous, you got to help us out. Put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Jared, the last chance here.
Yeah.
You can
All
do
right.
this.
Last chance to
Ready? Last word is formula. You have formulae,
Formulae.
or formulas.
I'm guessing it's just formulas.
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 Formulae. I think formulae. That just sounds like
Formulae.
It's like larva. Larvae.
It's whack.
When you put this formula and this formula together, you now have formulae.
But
What
also, my chemistry teacher always said formulas, not formulae. So my chemistry teacher lied to me.
High school education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
What high school
Jan-
did you go to?
What?
What high school did you go to?
Park Center, which
Park Center.
It explains a lot. I know.
Oh my. Park Center teachers, we love you. We apologize. This is not your fault. Well, I mean, maybe a little bit.
little
It might
bit.
be a little
It's
bit.
a little bit.
But I don't know. Thank you for playing. Okay, Baca, we're going to have to come back next week, play this game again.
Yeah.
That game is hilarious. We are all terrible at it. Maybe you're better, maybe not. I don't know. We're going to head out. We got to get ready up on the stage, but we'll catch you in like a minute and
Like
20
30 seconds, maybe.
So we'll see you in a minute. And then just keep your mic. All right. Are we live here? Are we going? What is up, everybody?
What's up?
Welcome to Redeemer Youth. We are so excited that you're here. If you're watching online, welcome. We are pumped. We are so glad to have you here. Everyone else in the room, if you can grab a seat, we are going to actually jump right in with a brand new game that, hold on. Before we jump into this game, how many of you have Disney Plus? Any Disney Plus users? A few Disney Plus? I have Disney Plus. I love it. I don't even like Disney a lot, but I do like Disney Plus, which is kind of exciting. So we're going to play a game called Where in the World of Disney? All right? This game is going to be very, very easy. How this is going to work is we are dividing the room in half. So you are one group, you are one group. Team 1, Team 2. All right? 2 different teams. One person from each team is going to come up, and you are up here for the entire game. What's going to happen is we're going to show a scene from a Disney movie. And the first person to guess that scene gets a point. First person to get 6 points wins the whole game. You and your entire side get a bunch of prizes, all right? That makes sense? It's a pretty simple, straightforward game, simple. So I think we should be good. Okay, so Baco, why don't you find someone on this side? I'll find someone on this side. If you're watching online, you get to just participate in the comforts of your own chair. So let's start over here. I need a representative from this team. Who's going to be it? Who's going to do this? I heard somebody scream a name. Come on. We need somebody here. Who's going to do it? Who? I'm going to be your representative? Oh, Brian, get up here. Come on. Brian. That's how we picked our team. All right. Okay, so we're up. All right. So, Team 1, tell us your name.
I don't watch so much Disney. But I'm Brian. I'm Brian.
All right, so you're off to a good start. Here, I'm going to let you hold the mic. Okay. I've got my own mic, so we're good to go there.
All right, and what's your name?
I'm Jordan.
Jordan, give it up for Jordan. Hello. All right, so Jordan, you are representative of team this side. Brian, you are representative of team this side. Now, if they don't know the answers, teams, your job is to tell them the correct answer. All right? But don't scream it too loud or the opposing person might get it. So here we go. Let's do this. 1st to 6 wins. All right? Let's watch the first scene. Let's see what the first scene is. First person to guess it right is the winner.
Toy Story.
Toy Story! He nailed it. I got to get my answer key out here because I don't even know all the Baco, you got, okay, there we go. Okay. Toy Story. All right. The correct answer was Toy Story. All right. Team 1, you've got 1 point. I'll keep track, Baco. I'll keep track of this side points. You keep track of Jordan. Here we go. Okay, you guys ready? Round number 2. Here we go.
Tarzan?
Not Tarzan.
Tangled.
Not Tangled.
Jungle Book?
Not Jungle Book.
Mulan.
No.
It was Mulan! Oh, Brian snuck that one out on you guys. Brian snuck that one out. All right, so 2 points for Team Brian's. All right, let's go to the next one.
Monsters, Inc.
Monsters, Inc. All right, 2-1. Here we go. Let's go to the next one.
Big Hero 6.
Inside Out. Inside Out.
Inside Out. It was Inside Out. Nicely done. All right, we got 3 on this side. We got 1 on this side. Let's go to the next one.
Chicken Little?
Not Chicken Little. This is a hard one. This one's real hard. Not Batman. I'll give you a hint. Think prehistoric.
Cars.
Not Cars.
Dinosaurs?
The Good Dinosaur! Yes! Nicely done. All right. 2-3. 2-3. Here we go. Let's go to the next one.
Oh my gosh.
Up.
Up! Yes! It was up! 3-3. All right. Here we go. Next one.
Emperor's New
Nope, not Emperor's New Groove. Who's gonna get it? I'll give you a hint. Pretty person and the monster.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast! Nicely done! All right, 4. So, Brian, you need 2 more. Okay. Jordan, you need 3 more. All right, so here we go. 2 more, 3 more. Here we go. Who's going to win it? Let's go to the next one.
Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo and Stitch! Okay, okay. This team is about to win. Now, Brian, I need you to know, Jordan, you too. You're playing for Starburst Jelly Beans. You're playing for all kinds of gushers. And there's a bunch of this stuff in here, okay? So we're playing for the win. So Brian, you need 1 more to win. Jordan, you need 3 more to win it, okay? Here we go. Let's go to the next round.
Oh my gosh.
Princess and the Frog.
No, it's not Princess and the Frog.
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille! Yes! Ratatouille! All right. All right, Brian, you still need 1. You still need 1. Jordan, you need 2. This is going to come down to sudden death here. I can feel it. Here we go. Next one.
Up. Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu.
No.
Bugs
Bugs
Life.
Life.
Bugs Life.
Bugs Life.
Bugs Life.
Did Jordan get it first? Jordan, it was A Bug's Life! Jordan got it. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, you guys, it's sudden death. It's sudden death. Last one. Where in the world of Disney?
Star Wars. Chicken Little.
Star Wars! It was Star Wars. Brian, here's your grand prize. Jordan, thank you for playing, but team this side, you all win. Nicely done, team you guys. You are all the winners. We're going to toss these out to you guys for being winners. Nicely done, team Brian's side. Let's do one more. Ready? Behind the back. Whew. That hurt my arm way more than it should. All right, now I'm gonna take this off now. All right, now that we're safe and distanced from everybody. Oh, thank you for playing Where in the World of Disney. For headlines today, Baca, we have an exciting announcement for everybody. I'm really excited. I've heard the cry for more time to connect, more time to actually be together, especially in your growth groups. We have heard your plea. And so starting next week,
We are extending AWOL till 8:30.
we are extending this thing until 8:30. So starting next week, from 6:30 till 8:30 is when our nights are going to run, which means you've got more time in your growth groups, more time to connect, more time to hang out, more time to have some fun and have some deeper conversations. So we are really excited. If you're watching online, that means more time for you to connect over Zoom. If you're watching the pre-show, Baca and I want to see the most ridiculous background videos that you can use while being on Zoom with your growth groups, okay? Keep it appropriate, but ridiculous. So we want to see that. We want to make it happen. 8:30 is from starting next week is when we are going to end. So that's our headline for you guys. So there we go. Baca, we're going to give this to you too. Awesome. Now, we are in a series called Unknown, and last week we started the first of 4 letters from our Senior Demon Screw Tape, and it's time to watch our second letter. Check it out.
My dear Wormwood, I received word of your failed attempt to make your patient see other humans as her enemy. I will be dealing most harshly with you on this matter, but though you may have lost the battle in this one area for now, the war continues, my dear student. We know that your patient has been made in the very identity of her creator, our most hated enemy. But she still has her doubts about this. She, like the rest of these nauseating humans, have grown dull to the spiritual, to the unseen. They only believe what they can see, hear, taste, touch. Use this to your advantage. If she cannot see her creator, Convince her to find her value, her identity, only in what she can see, namely those polished and filtered images of perfection on her phone. Lure her into that no-win game of comparison. When she happens upon her friend's smiling story from the weekend, do not let even a hint of delight for her friend to creep in. No, instead, remind her of the low points from her own weekend. Then, when you see her spirit sink even a little, that is when you plant the seed that her life must not be as happy as her friends, and therefore, she must have a sad life. Yes, use this beautiful trap of comparison as often as you can. Let it become the benchmark, the very standard in which she tries to measure up. She will quickly, without question, stop looking to her creator to tell her who she is, but rather look to created things, to culture, to the latest social and fashion trends to find her identity. Oh, my dear Wormwood, I have had the great pleasure of watching entire generations lose their creator's identity with this one simple deception. Make comparison become your patient's lifelong companion. Your wise advisor, Screwtape.
I just can't get over the deep, creepy, like Halloween-y kind of voice in that. Ooh. Oh, man. So we are in this conversation. Question to kick off. How do you know if you're good at something? I used to think that I was like the fastest person in my school. I used to think I was so fast. In elementary school, whenever it was recess, we would be outside as like, our whole class would be outside, and we'd be playing tag, and we'd always play this version of tag where if you got tagged, you would become another tagger, right? So it wasn't like you're it, now there's only one. It's like, that now there's 4 people, now there's 5 people, and 6 people, like everybody would become taggers. And I can remember in elementary school being out in recess, and the number of times I can remember running around the playground, running around the field, looking behind me, and like the entire class running, chasing me, trying to tag me, and they couldn't do it because I was faster than all of them. In middle school, they always make you run the mile, which is still like, I just don't understand the mile. Like it's the in case you get chased by a bear, you got to make sure you can run a mile. Like I don't understand what the mile is all about. But even then, back in middle school, I was always finishing with the fastest mile time every single year. No matter when we tried to run it, no matter how often, I was always the fastest person to run the mile. In high school, I played baseball, and they put me in the outfield because in the outfield, you need to be able to cover a lot of ground, and because I was fast, that's where I shined. So they had me out in the outfield and running all over the place. Every time I was on base, my coach would have me steal. And never once in all of my high school career was I thrown out while stealing a base. I was so fast until I learned that I wasn't. My junior year of high school, we were having baseball practice, but it started raining outside. And so we moved indoors, and the track team was also indoors practicing. And so my baseball team thought it would be funny for me, the fastest guy on our team, to race against the fastest guy in track. And that was Zulu. And so me and Zulu, we lined up. I'm talking crap to him, he's talking crap to me, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna smoke this guy. And so we line up, ready, set, go, and I take off. And I'm just booking it, and I don't, nobody's there, and I kind of like peek over, and I'm like, he's like right there. And I'm running, and all of a sudden I see Zulu, he's running next to me, and he goes from like running to like doing the sidestep thing, like the crisscross thing, and he's just staring at me. I'm like, no. And all of a sudden he turns from this and goes, and starts running backwards, goes, and then books it and beats me running backwards. And that's when I realized that I was not as fast as I thought I was. See, I always thought that I was the fastest guy because of who I was comparing myself to, right? My baseball team or my close friends or my class. I was fast, but I was not as fast as I thought I was. And see, when it comes to like comparison, like not being the fastest guy is really not that big of a deal. At least not to me, it's not. But when it comes to like the more core pieces of your identity, that is when comparison can become toxic. So we're in this series called Unknown. And this series is all about helping you discover what your true identity actually is. Like the identity that God, who knows you better than you know you, the identity that he has given you. That this series, this conversation that we're in, is all about helping you understand what your identity is and how to live into that identity. And we're in a part of the Bible called the armor of God, and we're just going to pick right back up from where we left off last week. So we're in Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 13. It says, "Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor," right? There it is, the armor of God, right? "Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor, so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then, after the battle, you will still be standing firm." Now, if you missed last week, I'd encourage you to go back on YouTube, rewatch that. But to kind of catch up to speed here, last week we talked about this reality that as followers of Jesus, people are not your enemy. Right? Like human beings are not your enemy. We are not each other's enemy. But we do have an enemy. It's a spiritual enemy. It's an enemy that the Bible would refer to as the devil or demons. That there's a reality that we are in a battle. And it's this battle over whether or not you will choose to live into your God-given identity. It's a battle over whether or not you will actually live into who God has created you to be. It's this battle over your heart and your mind. It's this battle for your identity. It's this battle for your eternity. And in this passage, it talks about how the armor of God, right? How there's armor that we wear. And whenever you think of the epic battle kind of movies or whatever, there's always like the helmet and like people always have to get ready to go into battle. And so they use this kind of metaphor as like armor, right? So every piece of armor is actually a piece of your identity. That every piece of armor is actually a part of who you already are. That these pieces of armor, that's not like something that you have to go out and earn, or you have to go do this quest, and then all of a sudden you get the shoulder pad of whatever. That's not how this is. Every piece of the armor is actually a piece of your identity that is already true about who you are. That when you choose to follow Jesus, you become a new person with a new identity, and each piece of the armor of God is a piece of an identity that you already have, but who you already are. And so we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna look at the first two pieces of the armor of God, the first two pieces of an identity that is already within you, that you already are. It says this. It says, "Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness." Truth and righteousness. Truth and righteousness. Those are two things about your identity that you already are. So let's talk about this. Truth and righteousness. Let's start with truth. Truth in our world today is kind of like this weird thing to understand, because it's always like, hey, you've got your truth, I've got my truth, right? You live your truth, I'll live my. Truth is just kind of this relative thing that just it's so hard to make sense of what truth is. So for the sake of our conversation, I want to put a little bit of words around what it means when we say truth. For us, truth is simply the voice that you allow to speak into your life, or the voices. Truth are the voices that you'll listen to that shape your worldview or shape your reality. Right? So when you let people speak into you, whether it's like a teacher or a parent or a friend or whatever, and you go, okay, well, that must be true. And then it reshapes everything about who you are and the way that you talk and how you live, and it redefines your truth. Truth is all about whose voice you are allowing to shape your reality. So truth and righteousness. Now, righteousness is one of those words that it sounds like a really like churchy religious word. In fact, it usually like it's only in like a church context that you hear the word righteous. But righteousness simply means right-relatedness. That's what righteousness is. To be righteous simply means that you are rightly related to someone. And in this case, in our context, that when you choose to follow Jesus, you are already rightly related to God. That you don't have to do anything, you don't have to behave a certain way, you don't have to act, or you don't have to do any of that. That because of Jesus, you are already rightly related. You are already righteous with God. And you now have the ability to be rightly related to the people around you. Truth and righteousness. That when you choose to follow Jesus, these are two things that are true about you. Truth, that you now have the ability to listen to and hear the voice of God and allow Him to speak reality into your existence, right? To speak truth about who you are and what the world around you is meant to be. That you can now listen to the voice of God because He is the voice of truth. And righteousness, right? That you already have within you this right relatedness to God and the ability to be rightly related to the people around you. And we talked about this last week, is that at the core of your identity, at the core of who you are, at the core of who God had made you to be, is someone who is loved and made to love. Right? That's what Jesus says. He says, I give you a new command, right? Love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as Jesus has loved you. That you are loved by Jesus, right? You are loved. Now love one another that way. You are made to love. That at the core of your identity, you are someone who is loved and you are made to love. That anytime truth and righteousness they come out of you, or they are always birthed from this place of love. That you are loved and you are made to love. That truth and righteousness will always lead you into a more beautiful future. That this righteousness will always move you into more whole and healthy relationships. Truth and righteousness, that these are two pieces of who you already are. That when you choose to follow Jesus, truth and righteousness are now pieces of your identity. So if truth and righteousness are now aspects, are now pieces of your identity, what does the enemy use to pull your heart and mind away from them? What does the enemy use to pull your heart and mind away from truth and righteousness, right-relatedness? And if I could put it in a word, it's comparison. You see, comparison is all about how you perceive that you measure up against someone else. Right? It's how do I measure up against this person? How do I measure up against them? It's this comparison thing. And it's just how you perceive it, because when I measure myself against this person, right, when I compare myself to this person, immediately the voice is now, well, are you better or worse? Are you prettier or uglier? Are you smarter or dumber? Do you have more followers or less followers? Right? This comparison thing, it says you versus them, right? How do you compare to them? But then, there's always this next voice that has to interpret what that means. So if you have less followers than them, well now there's this voice that's going to tell you what that means. If you perceive that you're uglier than them or dumber than them, now there's this voice that says, well, what does that mean? And kind of like the girl in that video, right? The one that Screwtape was talking about. Right? Well, pay attention to your friend's story. They look so happy. Make sure you compare yourself to them. Man, they were out with all of your friends and you weren't even invited. Well, you got to compare yourself. Right? Well, their TikTok got more likes and more comments than mine did. So you got to compare. Or they've got a longer snap streak with my best friend than I do with them. And now this voice, well, what does that mean? Well, that must mean that that must mean that you're not as good of friends with them as you thought you were. You know what? Maybe they just don't like you as much as you thought they did. And maybe you're just not a very likable person. And man, if you're not a very likable person, you must have a really sad life. And do you see how subtle this voice of comparison now takes your attention off of the voice that says you are loved and made to love? And all of a sudden, it becomes this toxic voice of comparison. You see, comparison is a liar. Comparison is a liar. Now, I am up here sharing this with you because I am someone who is constantly stuck in believing the lies of comparison. Like for me, this is such a huge weakness of mine, is comparing myself with other people. I do it all the time. And as I was preparing for this and just trying to process and trying to figure out this whole idea of comparison, I came to realize 3 different statements that I can recognize now when I'm comparing myself to other people. 3, I'm just calling them comparison statements. These are 3 things three statements that when I hear myself telling myself these things, I now know that I'm stuck in that lie of comparison. I'm believing a lie that started from a comparison with someone else. And so I want to share those 3 statements with you. 3 statements that in my own life tell me that I've fallen into the trap of comparison. The first one is, I'll never be good enough. You ever tell yourself that? None of us will ever say it out loud, but when you're alone at night and your mind is just going, I'll never be good enough. You see, for me, the place where I fall into that trap most often, and again, this sounds almost weird, but the place where I say I'll never be good enough is actually in my leadership right here at church. Because you see, for me, what I just end up doing is I value leadership. I think that leadership is so important in every area of life. But what I'll do is I'll look even to our volunteers out here, and I'll compare myself to them. I'll look at other youth pastors or pastors in our area or across the U.S. or even around the globe, and I'll compare myself to them. And this thought, I'll never be good enough, starts going through my head. I'll never be good enough to lead a ministry like that. I'll never be good enough to recruit and equip volunteers like that. I'll never be good enough to actually care for someone like that. I'll never be good enough. You see, for me, that's where the lie of comparison comes in. I'll never be good enough. And what this lie does for me is that it puts a limit as to what God can do through me to build a better future. Because I'll never be that. I'll never be able to. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be good enough is a lie of comparison, because comparison is a liar. The second statement that I'll catch myself saying sometimes when I realize that I'm comparing myself with other people is the statement, I wish I was more like that. You ever say that? Right? I wish I was more like that. And this is a tricky one, because I wish I was more like that can actually be a really good, helpful, healthy statement, but it can really, really quickly become toxic and destructive. I wish I was like that. I wish I was like that can be really, really good and helpful when it expands your world. I wish I was more like that can be really helpful when it grows your capacity to love people in a greater way. For me, this is why I read certain books and listen to certain podcasts. Because when I look at the authors, when I look at certain people, I can see who they are and go, man, they have something that I need. They have this wisdom that I actually need to gain for myself, because I want to be more kind like that. I want to be able to speak better like that, right? And so there's a really good side to I wish I was more like that, but how quickly it turns toxic and unhelpful. And again, this is almost embarrassing for me to say, because to just be really honest and vulnerable with you guys, where I've caught myself saying this a lot recently, I wish I was more like that, is actually with our worship team. That whenever they come up to the stage, I watch them and I go, man, I wish I was musical like that. I wish I could play the keys like Elissa or Wesley. I wish I could sing like Becky or Abby. I've joked about it for years, but like if I like found a magical genie that granted me 3 wishes, one of those wishes would actually be that I could sing like Wesley. Like I wish I was more like Baco or Nick or Ashton, could play the guitar really well. I wish I was more like Jared on the drums. You see, I look at them and I go, I wish I was more like that. But what I also know is that God has not called me anywhere into being musical. That God is actually, like the way he created me, the purpose that he's put out before me has nothing to do with leading musical worship. And I know that about myself because what I've come to realize that if I were to fall into that trap of I wish I was more like that, so I'll just take vocal lessons. I'll go out and I'll buy a guitar and I'll just start playing and practicing. And if I were to start chasing after that dream, because I have the position that I have, I'd make someone else step aside and I would just step in. And now all of a sudden I would be robbing someone of living out their God-given purpose. And not only would I be robbing one of the worship team of being able to do what they were able to do, I would actually now become a barrier between each and every one of you connecting with God through music and worship. I wish I was more like that. I wish I was more like that is the statement that makes you chase after things you were never meant to chase, to do things you were never meant to do, to say things and be a certain way that you were never meant to be because God created you differently. I wish I was more like that. Is another statement where comparison is a liar and it will deceive you and move you off to the wrong path. And the third statement that I'll catch myself saying sometimes when I'm caught in that lie of comparison, and this one I think is actually the most toxic of all of them. This one, in my own life and when I've heard and seen other people believe this lie, this is where I've seen the most destruction happen in a person's life and in the people around them. This to me is the most toxic of the comparison statements. And it's, at least I'm not like that. Have you ever caught yourself saying that? At least I'm not like that. Ugh. The way that they talk, the way that they act, at least I'm not like that. How they dress, the way they treat other people, at least I'm not like that. You see, at least I'm not like that. Every time that I get that thought in my head, immediately what I do is I puff myself up and I think way more highly of myself than I really should. And immediately I look at the other person and think that they are less than. Immediately, at least I'm not like that. I can't help but think of them as inferior to me. And therefore, I must be superior than them. At least I'm not like that. You see, as long as I'm saying that about another person, I will never be able to love them the way that Jesus loved them. You see, comparison is a liar. Comparison is a liar because it causes you to settle for less than you were created for. Or comparison will lie to you and get you to start chasing after things that you were never meant to be or do. Comparison is a liar. Comparison is a liar because you cannot be rightly related to someone who you think you are superior to or inferior to. Comparison is a liar, so stop listening to its voice. I was thinking of how I wanted to kind of wrap up this message, wrap up our time together, and I thought, what better way than to actually speak truth into you? And not just what Brian would say is true, but to actually go and look and see what God, what is it that you've already said that is true about all of us? That in the scriptures, what has God already declared to be true about you? Where you don't have to compare yourself to someone else, where you don't have to go, well, I guess maybe I'm better or worse than that person, or I don't know, maybe. But really, what has God already said to you that is already true about who you are? And so what I want to do is just read some things that are in the scriptures that God has already spoken that are true about who you are. And this is going to be my prayer over you. That as you stop listening to the voice of comparison, would you not just take in some other random voice to shape your truth, but would you start listening to the voice of truth, the God of truth, and allow him to shape your reality? So I want to speak these over you, because these are the things that God has declared to be true about you. You are God's beloved child. You are Jesus' friend. You are declared perfectly righteous, perfectly rightly related. You are free from condemnation. You are the temple of God. You are filled with the fullness of God. You are a saint, a holy one. You are someone set apart from everyone else. You are blessed with every spiritual blessing. You are holy and blameless. You are showered with wisdom and understanding. You are capable of thinking with the mind of Christ. You are inseparable from God's love. You will never be abandoned. You are someone who God throws a party for. You are a recipient of God's very own peace and joy. You can be filled to overflowing with Jesus' joy. You have been given direct access to the Father through the Holy Spirit. You have been made perfect forever. You've been made complete. You've been given a fearless spirit. You've been given a spirit of love and power and self-discipline. You are one of God's precious works of art. You are a citizen of heaven. You are someone who God is working to bring good out of evil. You are a new person. You are able to show others the goodness of God. You are someone who can do all things in Christ. You are bought with an infinite price, and you are forgiven. That is what's true about you. Would you stop listening to the voice of comparison and start listening to the voice of truth, to the God who knows you more deeply and intimately than even you know you? Amen.
You're the only answer to the darkness. You're the only right among the wrong. You're the only hope among the chaos. You are the voice that calls me on, louder than every lie, my sword in every fight. The truth will chase away the night. Your name is power over darkness, freedom certain. I know that the word will never fail. I know that in every situation, oh, you speak the hour to prevail. Louder than every lie, my sword in every fight. The truth will chase away the night. Your name is power over darkness, freedom for the captives, mercy for the broken and the hopeless. Your name is faithful in the battle, glory in the struggle. Mighty, it won't let us down or fail us. Your name is power. Oh, your name is power. When you speak, you scatter darkness. Light arrives and heaven opens. Holy Spirit, let us hear it. When you speak, the church awakens. We believe the change is coming. Holy Spirit, oh, let us see it. When you speak, you scatter darkness. Light arrives and heaven opens. Holy Spirit, let us hear it. When you speak, the church awakens. We believe the change is coming. Holy Spirit, let us see it. Your name is power in the darkness, freedom for the captives, mercy for the broken and the hopeless. Your name is faithful in the battle, glory in the struggle. Mighty, it won't let us fail nor fail us. Your name is power. Oh, your name is power. Yeah, your name is power.
I'll never be good enough. I wish I was like that. At least I'm not like that. Which of those statements do you hear most often? Which of those statements have you heard most recently? Because when you can put a finger on that, you can now gain control over the voice that you listen to. You can now be aware of the way that the enemy is trying to trick you into believing something that's not true about you or the people around you. Tonight, I encourage you to get real with each other in your growth groups. To actually name what it is that maybe you have spent some time in the trap of comparison. And together to start listening to the voice of truth. To start chasing after what is already true about who you are. Truth and righteousness. It's true about you. So like I said, after this, you guys have a chance to go to your growth groups. If you're watching online, you'll be able to connect over Zoom to your growth groups with the Zoom meeting ID, which is down below here. I encourage you guys to connect, to be real, to take a moment that maybe in this beginning of the year you've had some time to just kind of goof and talk, whatever. And maybe this is the night where you get a little bit vulnerable with each other, where you take a chance with each other and have some real conversation that'll actually push you to make a bigger difference in the world around you. Because you're doing the work of being who God made you to be. Again, next week, we're going to go until 8:30, so we're looking forward to that. You'll have more time in your groups together to connect, to have some fun, and to dig a little bit deeper. But for now, I want to invite everyone to stand together, and we are going to take our step. So on the screen, we're going to say these words together. If you're, again, watching online, I encourage you to stand and do this with us. Let's say this together. Each week, we take a step to signify our continuing walk with Jesus Christ. 3, 2, 1, step! Have a great time in your growth groups. We'll see you next week.